or orchids, which are in high demand by tourism sector, hospitality sector. We have here Dr. Krishnan, who will just take 10 minutes to take you around the world of diversity of rices. He is a well-known cereal biologist and is doing a lot of work on rice diversity, including all the local varieties of local rice, their quality. In addition, he has also documented the orchid diversity through his student, Dr. Govind Parab, and he would be illuminating on those aspects.
I'm going to speak on diversity of rice and orchids of Goa briefly. So we have come back to diversity. We have plants especially, and I'm going to talk on the rice first and then orchids later. So as all of you know that rice is a staple food and everyone consumes as a rice 1 or 2 times a day in all over the Asian countries. And especially special reference to Goa I'm going to talk on. And rice cultivation, if you see in Goa, about 39% the area of, a total area of area in the state. And rice is grown in different conditions. Like we say there are monard and midland and Kazan lands. So this is the area under cultivation. And both Kharif and Rabi season we cultivate rice. And this is to show you the different areas of cultivation, especially. This is upland, and these two are uplands, and this is the midland cultivation, and this is Kazan lands. Even though we say that rice cultivation is less in Goa, but the maximum amount of area, Concon and other areas, predominantly it is cultivated. If you look at, this is the very common rice variety which is grown in Goa. Corngood, and most of the Kazan lands, this rice is grown. It is not a breeded rice which is conventionally cultivated by farmers. It's called a traditional rice variety. And this is a rice spikelet, it looks like this. I'm just going to show you some of the diversity of the rice, different rice varieties. So one of my students, Shilpa, she's working for her PhD now on rice and various aspects of rice, grain quality and molecular genetic diversity studies and other things. So I'm just going to show you only the diversity of the rice varieties, different rice varieties. If you look at this, all these rice varieties are, some of them, and some are high yielding varieties except Jaya, Jyoti, and rest of the rice varieties are traditionally cultivated by farmers. You can see the morphology of the rice grain. Some of them are longer and some of them are short rice grains and some of them with awns and some of them are much shorter rice grains. So here again you see some of the rice varieties with a different morphological and diversity. So in Goa we documented so far about 60 different rice varieties. And among them, about 38 rice varieties are traditionally cultivated by farmers. And as per by Shilpa, the information provided by her, past 2 years, she could, now if she goes for rice collection of the traditional varieties, some of the varieties which were collected earlier, which could not get it back now. So because the farmers are changing into the traditional rice variety to high yielding varieties where you get more yield. So if you look at here, whatever the rice which you have seen earlier, they are with palea lemma, means outer covering. But here you can look at some of the rice varieties. After removing the palea and lemma, means outer covering, it looks like this. There are, because when the outer covering is there, you will not see the exact rice, how it is sold in the market. You can see the red rice and white rice, and red rice, short, bold grains, or long grains, and a different kind of things. So this is mainly the outer covering. But whatever the rice which we are getting in the market is already they polished, they'll remove this outer covering to remove the oil-rich alluron layer outside. So otherwise rice seed will become rancid, we may not be able to eat, and we may not store for a long time. Okay, these are the traditional rice varieties cultivated in Goa, and some we also collected from the state of Maharashtra, 1 or 2 varieties. About 38 varieties we have listed here, and still she continue to go for collection. And these are some of the high-yielding rice varieties which grown in Goa. Some of them are mid-duration or short duration. There are 2 hybrid rice which has been introduced into Goa, and salt-tolerant rice varieties are there. Other than Korungu, Tasagoa, they are traditionally cultivated rice varieties. And other than that, we also have centered rice varieties. And the most commonly cultivated rice variety in Goa is Jaya Jyoti, which are the high-yielding rice varieties. So one of the major problem with the rice, there is also the presence of chalkiness in rice grain. If you could see here, some of the traditional rice varieties and some hybrid rice, they have this problem of the chalkiness. If you see here the white spot, this is mainly due to the deposition of starch in the rice grain. So this makes the rice grain less quality. The quality of rice grain is less when they are present. So one of my students, Shilpa, she is also working on the chalkiness problem, how we can avoid this chalkiness, because this is the major problem with the hybrid rice, and also with some traditional rice varieties. Because this work is just started now, about a year or 2, and so far we have collected about more than 50 rice varieties, which show the diverse morphology, appearance, and color, shape, and size. And presently, I have received a project from Goa Department of Science and Technology Environment to work on grain quality evaluation, chalkiness problem, and molecular genetic diversity of rice, using this our own the state rice varieties. So in this, we are going to do the detailed work. So this is about the rice diversity. Just I wanted to show you the diversity of the rice. And next I'm going to orchids. So orchids, all of you know, this is the very beautiful flower which this particular group of plant, even when Dr. Janardhan morning we showed one of the orchids in his slide. So mainly I'm going to, because this information is from one of my PhD students who worked on orchids, and 3 parts of work, but only orchid diversity which I'm going to show you now. So as we all know, the orchids, which has about 30 to 35,000 species in the world, and India, which has about 1,141 species. And we know that it's, the turnover of orchids is very high, we say about more than 500 million. From orchid source, we get money. Throughout the world, it is. So we also say that the conservation of orchids is very important because of the over-exploitation of orchids in nature. So to maintain or to enlighten the conservation strategies, we are also trying to develop the method of conservations, for which we are doing some molecular studies. So from which we are trying to study the genetic variation among the different population of orchids. So we have surveyed entire Goa area, and mainly Western Ghats of Goa and other regions. And if you could see the this particular tree where you could see so many orchids are found, you could see the orchids are found as epiphytic, that is on the tree or on the terrestrial. So this is some of the orchids. Here you could see some of the orchids are there. These are all epiphytic orchids. So in Goa, we have collected about 26 species of orchids, and we have documented them. These are the list of orchids. I'm just going to show you some of the orchids, what we have collected and used for our research. I'm not going to name them. You can just see some of the orchids here. Especially this orchid, you can look at it. It is like an insect, like a flower. So this mainly attract the pollinators, and they adapted or developed this kind of structures. these are some of the orchid species. Here also you could see some of the orchids, about 26 species which we have photographed them and documented them. And among these two orchids we have selected for the mass propagation. So these two orchids, which are found in the wild, but these two orchids we have selected for the mass multiplication through plant tissue culture. So the methods also we have developed, and I'm just going to show you in 2 slides. So this is the method of mass multiplication of orchids. From the seed we have developed the methods through tissue culture or through in vitro culture to produce many plants. So we have standardized the procedure, and this protocol is available for anyone interested to try or mass multiply the orchids. So this is for another species, Rhynchostylus retusa, which we have worked out. So naturally the seeds germination is very less than 0.5% of the seeds germinate. Okay, so through this method we can produce many number of plants within short time, and throughout the year we can produce the plants. So here, starting from the seed, we develop callus and we multiply them through tissue culture, mass multiplication, and then finally transfer to the field. Okay, we have also done molecular genetic diversity studies to try to find out what is the genetic variation between the populations of orchids, so that we can understand how far genetically different one population from another. So this helps in the conservation of orchid species. So I'm not going into the details of this. So just show you this, some of the populations, how they are combining together. To conclude, Goa being a mining belt, or the lot of threatening activities going on, but still we could collect 26 species of orchids belonging to Toti genera, and we have developed especially these 2 orchid species which are potential for commercialization. We have developed the protocol for that, and we also studied the genetic diversity among these populations. Thank you.